And today is our very first show, so thank you to all 5 people who are watching, including our family. We appreciate the support.
And our friends.
For those of you that are listening, you can find us on 95.3 FM or 1470 AM. You can also watch live stream on our Facebook page, which is Wren and Roch as well.
And you can also call in. We are accepting calls and questions. The number is 888-565-1470. So please call us while we're doing the show.
But no heckling, please.
Right, no heckling.
So today we are very excited to have our first guest. Today we have Nikki Spolstra with us.
Hello. Thank you.
Who is a former Miami Heat dancer and an educator, and the wife of the Coach of the Year for the Miami Heat, Eric Spolstra.
Yay, thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thank you. Yeah.
So before we really get into the nitty-gritty of our show today, you have to start out by telling us the story of when you and Eric were in the parking lot.
Oh my gosh.
Because everybody knows who Eric is. So here comes Eric and Nikki.
I love this story. So Eric and I we're like shopping for mattresses. So we pull into this parking lot of the store and we're sitting there talking about what we're going to do for the day and whatever. And this car pulls up and he's in the driver's side and I'm in the passenger side. And the car pulls up on his side, right? And then we see a group of kids just like banging on the window, put your window down, put your window down. And so Eric naturally puts his window down and waves to the kids, right? Like, oh, hey, guys, yeah. Because like everybody says hello to him and people know who he is. And they're huge fans. Miami has a city that is full of awesome fans.
Yes.
So naturally we're like, oh yeah, the kids are saying hi to Spo. They're like, no. They're pointing, no, not you. That's my teacher. And so it was a really cool moment because I was like, wow, what I do is relevant and important. And well, it was like my moment to be like, haha.
Right. And in the moment, I'm cooler than you are.
Right.
Sorry.
This one moment. And so it was really fun. And that was a really funny moment.
Hi, Eric. We love you.
But that was Nikki's moment right there.
Moment,
so that's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
So before we get started with some questions, we would also like to thank Ivy Lee's Luxe Makeup Lounge, located here in Boca Raton, for doing our fabulous glam makeup.
Yes, and
we
our
love
big
you,
eyelashes.
Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
And Ivy Lee's is located at 233 South Federal Highway in Boca Raton in the Boca Grande building. So go check them out. They're amazing.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to start out with Nikki with some quick, rapid-fire questions Let's Get to Know Nikki.
And by the way, not only is this our first TV show ever, like our own TV show, but this is also Nikki's first time
on
TV.
Super exciting.
We're all doing this together for the first time.
Right.
So anyway, so rapid fire.
Okay, here we go. Wine or beer?
Wine.
Lip gloss or eyeliner?
Eyeliner. For sure.
Black or white?
Black.
Comedy or drama?
Drama.
Night in or night out?
Night in, for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Miami Heat or Miami Dolphins?
Miami Heat. What kind of question is that? I mean, I'm a Miami girl. I was born and raised here, so I'm for all of our sports teams here. But come on, I'm partial to the Heat.
Yes,
Let's go.
exactly.
It's more of a joke.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so question number 1.
So tell us how you ended up becoming a Miami Heat dancer.
Well, I didn't want to be a Heat dancer. Like I went through hardcore training growing up, and in my mind, like I was like, oh no, like I'm not going to dance for a pro sports team. Like I don't know what I thought about pro dancers, but I didn't think they were real dancers, right?
Right.
That was then. My dad was like, Nikki, no, come on, they are real dancers. You got to go see what they can do. So I had never been to a basketball game before in my life, and he got tickets in the lower bowl, which was like a big deal, which I didn't know that was a big deal. But so he takes me to a Heat game and he is like, look, watch their performances. And so I watched their performances, I videotaped them, and I was like, wow, they really are real dancers, or whatever that meant, right? To me at the time. And so I went to the auditions thinking there's no way I have a shot to make this team, and I did somehow. And it was incredible. And so then I looked back on those videos, and it was crazy because all of those women in those videos like would later become some of my very best friends. And I mean, I'm so grateful that I did.
Oh,
go
how
out
old
for
were you
them.
at the time?
I was right out of high school. 18 years old.
And why did you stop?
Well, I was going into my senior year of college, and I was working. I lived on my own, completely supported myself 100%, paid my own rent, paid my college tuition. And it was my senior year, and I was starting to get really serious about what the next steps were in my life. And my schedule didn't accommodate that anymore. It was sad, but it was the right step.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So your degree is in education, or?
You know what? It's actually in art history. I got certified to be a teacher in 2013.
yeah.
But I
Okay.
studied art history in college.
And you were an art dealer, or you worked for an art
Yes.
dealer?
After
Yes. That's me cyber stalking you, my friend.
After college, I moved to LA, and I did what most people would do, is try to use their degree.
Right.
And so I got hired at an art gallery. I worked there for about 2 years, and then they moved me back to Miami to open their Miami space. And after that, I was kind of in a place where I wanted to change, and I missed dancing, and I missed art, and I missed literature, the things that I'm really passionate about. And that's what kind of prompted me to get my certification in teaching and become a teacher.
So what grade are you teaching now?
6th and 7th grade gifted.
Wow.
It's crazy.
And everybody says middle school is like the hardest time, with the kids, and they're going through so many changes.
Well,
and
middle
not
school is
listening.
definitely, it's the fork in the road. Right, where they need people who care about them to kind of guide them through these changes and figure out where they're going to go next, or what kind of person they're going to be moving forward from all these changes.
So what is the most important thing you teach your children?
Well, let's see. One of the things that I tell them every day, it's generic, but I end every class period by saying, make good choices and be a good person. But really what I strive to teach them is work ethic. The kids that I teach, it's an inner city school, so the demographic of kids that I teach, they don't always come from the best home situations,
Right.
and they don't always have access to many of the things that we take for granted, like internet, computers, printers, access to media that they need to study. So I think instilling a sense of work ethic in them is super important now and for their future, because if they learn this now, these are tools that they'll have for the rest of their life, and they'll be able to, aim for success.
Right. It doesn't matter what path they end up taking.
Exactly.
That means everything.
Absolutely.
And I think that's lacking, honestly, in some of the youth.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, I always say, and I almost put a sign saying this in our teacher's lounge, but before you criticize the youth, make sure you remember who raised them.
Right.
So I think it's really important for educators and parents not to baby our kids, and they are our kids. And I don't have children of my own, but I have right? But I have many students, and I think it takes a village to raise our kids, because they're the next generation. They're so important.
Oh, they are, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us, on that note, what is your life goal? Where are you headed? What are you doing? And when the day comes, hopefully decades and decades from now, when, you're no longer around, how do you want to be remembered? What do you want people to say about you?
It's funny. When Eric and I were getting to know each other, we asked each other these questions, right? And I was like, I just want to have fun. He's like, what do you mean have fun? And it might sound superficial on the surface, but what I mean is that what I mean by saying I want to have fun is that I want to live my most authentic life and be the best possible version of myself, and do things that are want-based, and because they make me truly happy, that they make me a better person and they make other people better. The legacy, I don't know that I have one thing. Like, I meet so many people that they've spent their lives knowing that this is their one thing that they're going to do and be amazing at. I mean, my husband's one of them. He's incredible at what he does, and that's his life thing. That's what he does, and he's so passionate about. I have like so many different things that I'm passionate about, and I can't find a way to just stick to one. And so my life goal is a lot more broad, I think, and it's about authenticity ultimately. And it's something that I like to teach my kids as well.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think it changes with the decade because when we first started in our 20s, our degree was in interior design, and that's what we did. We focused on that, and then, that
It's
has
evolved,
kind of
right, into fashion
evolved
design and
morphed
social impact, and here we are hosting our own radio, TV show.
Right.
Who knew?
But,
Yeah.
so there's still
you just
time.
kind of roll with the punches and see what happens, and
For sure. Well, I think a big part of it also, because I felt this way in my early 20s and now I'm in my early 30s. And I think a part of being in your 20s and going through this like life transition is finding out who you are and what's really important. I know that in my early 20s, I felt like I was putting myself in a box a lot. Like I was trying to find the label for myself. Like I am this one thing, or I'm going to be an art dealer. I'm going to be defined as being a teacher. And I don't know that in today's world that people are defined in that way. Right? Like we're not just one thing, especially as a woman.
Exactly.
We're not only wives and mothers, we're entrepreneurs and advocates in the community. We're so many things, and women in general, I think we wear so many hats.
For sure. And I think in the 20s, we're busy like trying to prove ourselves and say, this is what I'm going to do and how I'm going to get there. Then in the 30s, you're really like finding yourself and getting comfortable in your career. And by the time you hit your 40s, you're like, I'm golden. Like, I got this. I don't know where this is going.
You ready for your TV
And I don't
show?
care if
No,
anybody doesn't
I'm
like
not.
me, but I'm happy with me. So let's roll.
Well, and I think that's what's so important, and that goes back to like this whole idea of authenticity and being the truest version of yourself and being happy with that version and like letting go of the judgments from outside.
Yes.
Right? And that's really difficult for young people to do.
totally.
So going back to my dance team, it's something that I try to remind them of. Like just be the most authentic version of yourself. Nobody is you, and that is your power.
Right. And
Yeah.
I have to do an Eleanor Roosevelt quote right now.
Go ahead.
It's no one's business what others think of you.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
And once that registers and like really sinks in and you start to live your life that way, it's so liberating because like you said, you're just like, hey, I'm showing up. This is me. Take it or leave it.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Tell us what motivates, inspires, and drives you.
Well, it's changed over the years. Growing up, dance was the thing that inspired me the most.
And what type of dance did you
Well, I was technically
do
trained
originally?
in jazz, ballet, hip hop, contemporary, and I did gymnastics, and I was on competitive dance and cheerleading teams.
How old were you when you started?
I actually got started late. Like according to most dancers, I got started in middle school.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you teach me how to dance? I'm horrible.
We can go dancing.
I have 2 left feet, so
Yeah.
help.
But that was, I think, finding my version of expression was what inspired me at that time. And it's crazy because in so many ways, as I've gotten older, it's always been about finding my voice and being expressive, and how am I going to use my voice to make a difference and make people better and make myself better, make others better, and give back to the community. And so I think feeling empowered and feeling authentic is what drives me. I'm in the pursuit of the best possible life for myself and those around me. Yeah.
That's good. And what do you think is the best advice you've ever received?
Well, actually, so Dave Grohl said, "No one is you, and that's my power." That's what I tell my students all the time, because everybody has their unique gift. And no, I don't think that any one gift is better than the other. Like, I would love to be a singer. That's just never going to
Me too.
happen.
I
Like,
can't
that's
sing at
just
all, but I love
not
to
my
sing.
gift.
She sings, but
I sing. It's not good. No, it's not good.
Right. But everybody has their gift to the universe. And sometimes it's not always obvious, right? Like it could be anything. And so I think that's the best advice that I've ever read. And it's the best advice that I can give. Also, something that I've been living by more recently is you can have anything, but you can't have everything, or at least not everything all at one time, right? Like my life is going to go through phases where I had this at one point and I no longer can have it and have this at the same time, right? And I think, again, a lot of women go through that, especially when they become moms, right?
Oh, it changes drastically.
Right. Like you can have anything, but you maybe can't have it all at once, and that's okay. And if we acknowledge that, like we can become happier in the moment and like really be grateful for the things that we do have.
And be kind to ourselves. You know, I think as women we're so like, into like being perfect
Oh
in
my
every
gosh.
aspect and giving 100%. And you can't all the time. So just be gentle and go, you know what? I'm going to cut myself some slack today, you know?
Right. And be honest with where you are on the day. And, you know, not that when a stranger walks up and says, how's it going? You don't want to like dump everything on
Do you
them.
really
But
want to know?
at the same time, when you need help, when you are, you know, overworked or stressed out, like reaching out to your friends and your family, the people who care about you and
Right.
say, like, you know, help, I need to cry, I need to laugh, I need, you know, I need a vacation, whatever it is, you know?
For sure.
So I guess that sort of goes into, like, what advice would you give your younger self knowing what you know now?
I think that, and just being okay with who you are and just trusting the process and the journey of all of it. I spent so many years trying to be this one thing,
Right.
and that's just not going to make anybody happy. So my younger self, I would say, no, just be you, be creative. Don't let anybody tell you not to use your voice. And I try to tell that to my young dancers too. I think that adults have a tendency to silence children or silence people who want to use advice. No, we can't talk about these things that make people uncomfortable, right? Yes, we can talk about these things, and I'm going to talk about them. So the advice that I'd give my younger self is to use my voice to empower. Don't be in the box. Don't let anybody take away your light. That's what I would say.
That's good. I like that.
That is really good.
Take away your light.
Yeah.
So speaking of uncomfortable subjects, I'm looking to see what the time is. Okay, let's talk about your wedding for 2 seconds.
That wasn't super uncomfortable. It was very comfortable.
That was very comfortable. It was very beautiful, very chic and fabulous.
Thank you.
You had Ron Book officiate the wedding. And Lauren Book was also at your wedding, which is where I met her for the first time. So tell us the connection between you and Lauren, Lauren's kids, Ron Book.
Right, and let the audience and listeners know about Lauren's kids so that they can get a full
First
picture.
of all, I love the Book family. Lauren is one of my favorite people on the planet, and Ron is just such an incredible human being. Both of them are amazing, and I feel so grateful that I've had the opportunity to meet them and work with them. And I'm grateful for Eric for making this introduction. Ron and Lauren have an affiliation with the Heat, and they do Walk in My Shoes every year. And every year they stop at the arena on their way. They walk from Key West to Tallahassee, advocating for those who've been in harm's way, children who've been sexually abused. And their walk is symbolic of telling people who've experienced things, not just children, but adults who've gone through serious trauma that haven't spoken up about it, that it's okay to tell. And so I've had the opportunity to walk with Lauren in Miami and get to know her. And before I got to know her very well, she randomly invited me to Tampa to go to Alpha House to visit the battered women's shelter there, where they offer support for women who've been raped or they're pregnant and they're expecting and they don't have anywhere to go. And that was one of the first times that I had heard Lauren's full story. And I was so moved.
I know, I just got chills. I've heard the story a million times, and I still get chills.
I mean, and so that, it's crazy because I think that everything happens for a reason. I think that people come into your life for a reason. And I realized that I had so much in common with Lauren that, things that were difficult, and just, it was eye-opening and refreshing to hear somebody speak so openly about what they had been through. And that was the start of my friendship with Lauren. And not to mention just Eric and I, that was kind of like our coming out party, the first public appearance that we had made. So that was kind of cool. And so the whole thing was symbolic in this eventual happening that Ron Book officiated our wedding. But yeah, Eric made the introduction, and from there, Lauren and I are really close friends, and I've gotten to know her through the years, and I've been able to celebrate so many great experiences with her, from her wedding, my wedding, the birth of her children, and yeah, so it's been great. And she's such a light. I mean, she is the queen of empowerment. So
that's what we always tell people. We're when they hear her story, we're don't feel sorry for her.
Not at all.
She's amazing. She's doing something really great with what happened to her, and really making a change in the world, you know, a change for the better. So
Absolutely. And so what's great is she actually invited me to sit in on one of her meetings that I felt so privileged to be able to do this. And I was able to take back a curriculum and kind of put it into effect with my students about telling my students that it's okay to tell. And now as an educator, I know the signs to look for if a child is being abused. And it really helps me and helps my students like identify these situations in their peers and just be confident knowing that they have an adult that they can trust. So it's cool because it all comes full circle, but Lauren was really an inspiration for that. Yeah.
And the curriculum that she created changes from elementary to middle to high school, so it can really grow with the kids, which is really important.
Absolutely.
what kinds of things do you, I know we didn't plan this discussion, but what kinds of things do you tell the kids and what is their response to it? Like, how much are you allowed to say in terms of like the state of Florida and all of those things in terms of the curriculum?
I try, according to school, I teach the state requirements. You know, teaching English, I have plenty of standards to cover throughout the whole year, and it's a miracle when we can just get through to all of them and get them ready for the Florida Standards Assessment. But apart from that, you know, especially with my dance team, I have an ability to connect with them on something that they're really passionate about.
Yes.
And so when we have team bonding activities, I try to make it a point to say things really not about the standards, but more so about finding an adult that they can trust and being confident in using their voice, not to abuse the privilege, because there's that too, right? Like people in general that abuse, right, a loophole or something like that, but to be genuine in who they are, be confident and feel safe with an adult, right? Find an adult. Maybe it's not the parent, maybe it is the parent, maybe it's an aunt, uncle, friend, coach, teacher, somebody in their life that they're okay with telling. And kids speak up. Like, and maybe it's not that, but now it opens a door for them to bring up questions that they're concerned about. And, you know, I have a great line of communication with my students and their parents. And it's really like a family. But I think it's really important to talk about things in general, you know? And so, like Lauren's experiences, yes. They've shared, like, I've met so many people in general that have shared their stories with me, and I've had an opportunity to share my story. And you realize more than anything that you're not alone.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that a lot of kids feel alone. A lot of adults feel alone.
Right. Because it's not like socially acceptable to talk about these things in public because people feel like it's no one's business, it's private, it's uncomfortable, it's embarrassing, it's my fault. But so we're all working to really start a conversation to change that.
And there's so many important topics that need to be spoken about, especially in this day and age with all the changes that our country's experiencing.
Right. Yes.
I mean, the conversations are endless.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's hard because, right, you don't want to offend people, but you also want to be who you are and say what's important to you. So
Yeah,
exactly. These are important conversations to have in general.
And even just being women and empowering each other, you know, like as adults, I always say, like, with men, they meet each other for the first time and they're like, you know, like
best
bros,
friends,
instant friends, right?
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
The bro code.
And
2 seconds after meeting each other. But women, like, we meet each other and, you know, it's like an instant critique of what that person looks like.
know,
Or,
it's so sad.
she was a heat dancer or whatever. And it's like, or, you know, her dress is too short or her heels are too high. And it's like, why do women do that to each other? Like, there are so many great women out there. And if we listen to each other's stories and share our stories, you start to see how much you have in common. And, you know, if everyone kind of does a little bit to make the world a better place, like, I don't know, it all
build
just
each other
adds
up instead of tearing each other
Absolutely.
down. That's
You know,
really...
I totally agree. I mean, to touch on your brief comment about, like, oh, she's a heat dancer, right? Like, I lived in that box for a long time, too.
I feel like
of
that
being,
would be, like,
judged almost.
That's who you are and that's it.
Well, and it's such a shame because I think that professional dancers get such a bad rep. And, you know, I speak to my young dancers about this, too. You know, people instantly make a judgment if you're a professional dancer, unless you're in the industry, right? Then they just know. But it's so sad to hear that women, young, beautiful, talented, passionate women, are being judged for doing their craft and what they love.
Exactly.
Or that people make assumptions about character based on things like that. So I did want to acknowledge your comment because it's a very real thing, and I respect all of the professional dancers that I know, and props to them for doing what they love.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. Athleticism. Are
Absolutely.
You kidding me because of the time?
Absolutely.
Yes. Plus
Yes, I am hitting you
which I
because of
have
the time.
zero.
And I want you to give
Oh, yes.
Oh my
Nikki,
goodness.
Nikki.
What's this?
Yes.
presents. So for
Oh.
those of you
Final
who are
gift.
just tuning in for the first time, Karen and I have a company other than the Wren and Roch show, which is Wren and Roch handbags, and it's a social impact brand. And
Hold on, we're taking the microphone cord with us.
Empower
Thank
victims
you.
and survivors of rape, domestic violence, and childhood sexual assault. And we donate a percentage of our proceeds to organizations that are in alignment with our mission, which
Like
one
Lauren's
of them
Kids.
is Lauren's Kids,
Yes.
and the other one is Safe Space Foundation.
Aw.
So this is our gift to you.
Thank you so much. Do you want me to?
Yes,
should I- shall I open
we have
it?
literally like a minute, but you
All
can
right.
rip into
oh,
it.
You guys
and,
are so sweet. Thank you.
and for those of you that are
just-
listening, we really
I forgot
want
to
your
sign the card.
takeaway to be from today's show. That it's all about empowerment. It's about inspiring you to be the best person you can be and to live your life and your dreams to the fullest.
I love this.
So thank you all for joining in today. And next week, you'll hear all about our personal story and how
Yes.
Wren and Roch came to be and why we're doing this. So
By the way,
thank you all.
This is beautiful. Thank you
Yay.
so much. And this
You're
card is
welcome.
awesome. I'm going to put it up on my bulletin board. She is beautiful, fearless, powerful.
Yes, that's you.
Just like you guys.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you so
Spolstra.
much for having me.
Thank you all for listening. Have a great evening.
Good night.
Thank you for joining us for today's show.
Please join us at the same time next week for your weekly dose of entertainment, inspiration, and empowerment.
We'll see you next week.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers